welcome to an in-depth review of the VanMoof S3. I recently got this brand new electric bike. It's my first electric bike, so I wanted to share some of my thoughts. Now, as a disclaimer, I do not do reviews for a living. I'm a technical consultant for a large software company. So if 5 minutes into this, you're thinking like, damn, this review sucks, like just cut me some slack, all right? Kind of putting it together so that people can get a feel as to what this bike would be like if they were to spend the $2,000 it takes to get this. What are you getting for it? What does it feel like? How does it ride? What are the components made out of? Are they durable? Are they smooth? So I wanted to put some of my thoughts together, and I hope you enjoy this review. Now, I bought this bike purely for recreational purposes. I'm going to use it to carry both my kids around in it. I'm gonna take it around the city. I'm gonna go down the Los Angeles riverbed to go to the beach and then come back home. And so that is the purpose for me. And really it's so that I don't get so tired hauling around two kids and myself around town. And now without further ado, let's talk about what I think would be arguably the most important part about the bike, which is going to be the riding experience. Now, as I said, I've only had the VanMoof for about 3 days, and I pre-ordered on May 11th. It said that it was going to arrive May 26th. It actually ended up arriving on May 28th, which is fine. Everything arrived great, no big hiccups there. The longest ride that I've done to date is the one that you're looking at here. Is basically 9 miles on the LA riverbed. From my house to the beach is about 9 miles. So what did it feel like during these 18 miles that I'm riding this bike? Mostly flat. You can see that there's some small hills. It kind of go dips and goes back up whenever we're going under a freeway or under a street or something like that. And there's a bunch of people on the riverbed as well. I kind of have to pass them sometimes, and I have to stop right behind them and then speed up once again. So what does it actually feel like to ride the VanMoof S3? So sitting on the bike, holding the handlebars and just riding naturally, the ride actually feels very comfortable. You're more in an upright kind of position rather than a road bike, obviously, which is, much more an aggressive aerodynamic kind of position. So very comfortable. I think to be able to ride a long distance is fine. You're kind of standing upright. Your neck's not gonna hurt. Possibly your butt might hurt a little bit because of the seat, although your mileage might vary. And as you're pedaling, obviously this is a pedal assist bike, meaning that you're honestly not gonna have to pedal that hard, right? There are 4 levels of pedal assist. Well, 5 technically. You have 0, which is 0 pedal assist, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. This being my first e-bike, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect, to be honest with you. I wasn't sure that if I choose power level 4, is it just gonna automatically take me to 20 miles an hour, which is the top speed in the US, and I'm gonna have a hard time just cruising by at 12 miles an hour if I'm going through a small neighborhood, or is it going to essentially give me more power as I start to pedal a little bit faster and a little bit stronger? What I found in my testing in this long ride is that if you're on power level assist 4, which again is the highest level, the bike is gonna take you to 20 miles an hour, right? And the way for you to be able to control how fast you're actually going if you don't want to hit the top speed is that you pedal a little bit and then you kind of cruise for a little bit and then you pedal again and then you cruise. Because as long as you start pedaling, even if you don't actually feel the resistance, right, you're just kind of like crawling and you're pedaling, the motor is strong enough to be able to take you all the way up to 20 miles an hour, given that you're kind of going straight and there isn't a ton of headwind. So here's a little experiment that I did just for fun. Is in power level 4, how long does it take to get from 0 to 20 once I start pedaling with not feeling any actual resistance, which is the video that we're looking at first, then pedaling normally, which is feeling that resistance, and then pedaling normally plus the boost button, right? Now this experiment is not so much about looking at the hard numbers themselves, but more around how gradual is the acceleration if you barely pedal, if you pedal regularly, and if you pedal with the boost button. So take a look at the numbers and let me know what you think. So it's going to be a little bit trickier in order for you to control the speed. And really the way that you're going to be able to control which speed that you go at any given moment is, aside from, you know, stopping the pedaling and letting the bike cruise a little bit, is also choosing the power level. The power levels themselves will be able to allow you to choose whether you want to go 20 miles an hour at power level 4, 17 at level 3, 14 at level 2, and 11 at level 1. And basically, if you hit level 0, then it's kind of up to you to figure out how fast you want to go, depending on how hard you pedal, right? Now, having said that, if you are at power level 4 and the bike does take you to 20 miles an hour, well, how hard is it for you to get from 20, which is practically very easy to do, all the way up to, let's say, 22 or 24, 25? And from what I found is that it's actually pretty damn difficult to get all the way anything past 20, right? It's just not that easy. It almost feels like even though you're on a flat level surface, the, you know, front motor is going top speed, you start pedaling, you feel a little bit of resistance, right? That kind of gets you going. But really getting up to 20, even 21 or 22, it requires a lot of effort. You know, almost feels like you're going uphill, right? With a very high gear on. And so you're essentially going to have to be happy going as 20 miles an hour being your top speed. Maybe when you're going downhill, you're going to be able to push it and it's going to be able to go faster. But for the most part, you're going to be stuck at 20. All right. If you can live with that, then we're all good here. Now, this bike is a big bike, right? I typically ride either a 54 or a 56 centimeter bike, which is a medium to large kind of frame. This bike essentially is a 58.5 centimeter, which is a big bike. It's a heavy bike. So when you're riding it, you're kind of going through corners, you're zigging and swagging. You're going to feel that it's a bit of a bigger bike. But at the same time, you're also going to feel like you've got a good amount of control. You have a lot of good grip. It just feels very stable. It feels very fun to be able to ride it. But because it's such a big bike and it's a heavy bike, going 20 miles an hour honestly does not really quite feel like you actually are going 20 miles an hour. It probably feels a little bit slower. When I had a, you know, smaller frame and I had a full carbon bike, me going 20 miles an hour honestly felt a little bit faster than what this one does. Now, the electronic shifter works well most of the time, but it's not without issues. And if you just pay attention to this video right here, you'll notice that there's a little clank. Do you hear that? So that is something you just kind of have to get used to. And honestly, it's not that bad. I mean, unless you're just really used to always having top of the line components like a Duro Ace or Ultegras or Ceram, whatever the equivalent of Ceram is. A lot of the other bikes that I have, even if they have Shimano 105s or it's kind of like the Nexus hub, you know, as you're pedaling, the gears are going to change and you are going to feel sometimes, not always, sometimes a little bit of a skip, right? And so I don't think that's big of a deal. I think it's fine. And I didn't really have any big issues with the gear shifting or anything like that. Yes, it does skip from time to time. Usually for me, it was going between first and second or second and third gear. But other than that, it was actually pretty good. And I enjoyed it when it shifted for me. You know, obviously you don't have as much control. So when it does shift, you feel a little bit of a surprise and you're like, whoa. And then you kind of have to pedal a little bit harder. But at the same time, the bike is also going to help you keep going as well. So not as much to worry about there. Now, one of my concerns when I was thinking about buying the VanMoof S3 was the screen itself. Yes, I mean, it's a little hard to see in broad daylight. It's fine usually if you just kind of take a quick peek straight down. You can kind of, for the most part, tell how fast you're going. But my main concern was, is that going to be accurate? Like when it tells me I'm going 20 miles an hour, is it actually going to be 20 miles an hour? Or is it going to be something else? And what I found in my testing as I'm using Map My Ride and it's using GPS to track my speed is that it is in fact accurate. All right. Now, when you're looking at the screen, sometimes there's a discrepancy between the two, and that's mostly because there is a lag for my phone itself to be able to catch up and determine what the actual speed was. But whenever I went flat for a while and I actually looked down and I matched what is being displayed on the bike itself and on my phone, it matched. Now, as you're riding, the left button will sound the bell, which is fine. It's a good bell. You can hear it here. I prefer the standard sounding bell rather than those other two weird ones. And people will notice, right? Whenever you ring it, it's loud. People in front of you, behind you, sideways, they can hear it. They will just kind of know something is approaching. I better get the hell out of the way. Now, when it comes to the boost button, I was very much looking forward to seeing how this was going to work. I wasn't entirely sure if by going at a full speed, 20 miles an hour, and pushing that boost button is was going to take me all the way up to, 22 and 25. But, from what I found is that if you are going 20 miles an hour, you push the boost button, that's not going to help you. The boost button basically doesn't do anything. But if you are traveling under 20, it's going to accelerate and it's going to get you to 20 much, much faster. This, for me, is great because sometimes I have, small hills, or I have to pass people up on the riverbed. I have to slow down when I'm right behind them because there's traffic on the other side. And then suddenly I got to punch it because I want to pass them very quickly. And that boost button actually works wonders. If you just take a look at this footage, you can see me passing people on the riverbed again and again and again and again. And people always have to do a little bit of a double take whenever I'd pass them, because suddenly it's like they've got this full workout, riding bike gear on, and they're trying to go as fast as possible. And here I come, just kind of cruising along. I'm passing them, and I'm either pressing the bell or I'm saying on your left, and they kind of look over and they have to do a little bit of a double take, like, what the hell? There's a guy with a kid behind him who's just cruising past by me. And obviously, unless they're very familiar with it, they don't know that this is an e-bike. They just think I have some kind of superpower legs, which is okay with me. But it is, kind of a fun experience. Now, once I got to my final destination, which was roughly 35 minutes and 9 miles, I used about 30% of the battery. Now, again, I was going power level 4, mostly 20 miles an hour the whole time. But the thing that was amazing is that I honestly was not that tired, which fulfills the purpose of why I bought the bike in the first place. Being able to ride to the beach with my kids without getting tired and doing it quickly. Now let's take a look at the bike itself. This isn't going to be a review of the spec sheet. You can get that off the website, but I was more focused on what don't you get on the website? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What is the experience of it? And what are some of the components and how well are they made? My VanMoof arrived very intact in the box itself. Thank goodness. I saw some posts on Facebook that, people's bikes were all scratched up. The box was all beat up. Mine delivered by UPS to Los Angeles. It was fine. Took it out of the box, set it up, give yourself maybe 10 minutes in order to do it. Read the manual, unlike me who didn't read the manual, set it all up like I'm doing here. It looks like I know what I'm doing, but in reality, I had to take it all apart again and then redo it after reading the manual. So make sure you do that. Now, one of the things that's most attractive about the bike is that it is a very simple bike. It doesn't look like an e-bike, it doesn't look bulky, and it's got very functional buttons, but it works very well. And so I think as far as e-bikes in the market go, this is the best looking e-bike that you can get today for this kind of money. Now, when you're looking at this bike and you're expecting it and you're touching it and you're feeling it, you certainly get the sensation that the people that made this bike just kind of fussed over every little piece as they were designing it and they were building it. Because, anybody can design a great bike. Really, it's up to the engineers to figure out, like, this is how it's all going to come together. And I think they've achieved quite a marvelous bike, right? I've had high-end road bikes. I had a Colnago CLX. It's roughly $6,000 full carbon bike. I also had like steel bikes and everything in between. This is my first e-bike, as I said, and it is a great bike. Like, I really like this bike. It feels good, feels sturdy, it's fast, it's smooth, and I think it's very well designed, very well engineered, not without issues, and I'll talk about that, but I do very much enjoy it. Now, the website says it's about 40 something pounds, and it feels like it's pretty evenly distributed. Like, the front itself feels like it's got about half the weight, then the other half is in the back. It looks like it's well balanced. Like, if you pick it up somewhere in the middle, obviously I didn't pick it up in the middle the first time, but and my left hand is really too weak to hold 40 something pounds. but it's actually pretty well balanced, right? Which is kind of nice. And it picking it up to take it upstairs or something, I wouldn't want to do that on a regular basis. I have an attached garage on a single story home, so I don't have to do that. But if I did, you may want to consider something else unless you have really wide stairs. So flipping the bike upside down will kind of give you an idea of how this works. You can start pedaling, but it really takes the front wheel to start spinning before the motor starts kicking in. Now, one thing that I want you to pay attention is once I stop pedaling, how quickly does the front wheel stop spinning? Because it seems like there's quite a bit of drag on the front wheel, right? Look at the difference between the front wheel and the rear wheel. Rear wheel, almost zero drag, right? That thing is going to keep spinning for 2+ minutes. The front wheel actually stops spinning, I don't know, 15 seconds in or something like that. And so even when you flip it upside down and you're just kind of manually rotating the tires, you do feel like there's quite a bit of drag on the front wheel. And obviously, that kind of friction is going to cause the bike to be less efficient when you're on the road. I'm not entirely sure if that's actually true or if the motor just kind of helps and itself is so efficient that you don't necessarily need it. Anyway, something I just noticed. The motor itself, it's not very loud. It's actually very quiet, and I was surprised of how quiet it was. When you're out on the street and you're riding the bike and you're next to people, I don't think they're gonna be able to tell that you have an electric motor. Now, this bike does have a chain, and some of you might be wondering, like I did, why not a Gates belt? Right? They seem to be in all high-end or many high-end bikes these days. And according to VanMoof's co-founder, Gates belts also expand, which I don't think they're supposed to, but he said that they expand as well, much like chains, but they have some kind of chain tensioning system in there, and that's why they went with the chain. Okay, the hydraulic brakes that are on the bike, they feel great. These are my first hydraulic brakes, and they're actually my first disc brakes on a bike. I've always had like those regular brakes. And it feels good, right? You push them, they go about half, the levers go about halfway, and you're able to brake pretty quickly. I'm not gonna say like it's gonna flip you over because it's a big bike, but you're gonna be able to stop when you need to stop. On the front of the bike, I attached a phone mount, and this is a question for anybody listening. Is this okay? Is it okay to hook the phone mount to the cable itself? Is that gonna break? I don't know, but if you do know, please let me know. In the front of the bike, I attached a Peak designed fuel pouch. It's not really made for a bike, but this is the only thing I had lying around the house, and it actually works pretty well. It's spacious inside. I've got some tools. I got some masks because of COVID, and it's able to fit everything pretty well. I got these, cheap kind of Velcro straps tying it around the front handlebar, which works for now. I'm hoping it doesn't fall off, but if it does, I'll replace it with something else. But I like this Peak Design fuel pouch. The chain cover itself is plastic. It kind of moves around a little bit, which is fine. It's not a big deal. You can take it off if you want to. The electronic shifter obviously is also covered. I didn't try to remove it. I don't know what it's like to repair. This thing has a 3-year warranty. I'm hoping it doesn't break during that time. If it does, I'm hoping VanMoofs is able to send out a new e-shifter for me if it breaks within that 3-year warranty period. And if it breaks after that, I sure hope it's not too expensive to replace it. The front and rear tires are very wide. They feel very durable, very sturdy. Looks like it's got really good grip for now. They say it's puncture resistant, whatever that means, but I feel like I'm in control when I'm on the bike and there's these big, beefy tires keeping me floating at 20 miles an hour. Schrader valves, nothing crazy. I do like the little cap that they included. That's kind of neat. Thanks, VanMoof. The left and the right button are identical. They've got a very positive click to it. They don't feel mushy. When you push it, you know that you're pushing it. You get a positive feedback to it. You can push the left button to start up the bike, and it kind of lets you know on the screen itself that it's starting. Underneath the screen is where you're able to open up the charge port and charge it. You also have this speaker next to it, which is a very loud speaker. I am somebody who likes to keep their nails short, and so I just hate this kind of port where I have to like peel it open with my non-existing nails. And this looks like some kind of infomercial where I play dumb and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but honestly, I'm actually trying to open this thing. The charger itself kind of looks a little proprietary. I don't know. If I need to replace it, I'm probably gonna contact VanMoof. I'm not gonna try to go somewhere else. There is a power brick that basically you plug against the wall, and then as soon as you plug it, it'll let you know that it's charging. The seat itself, it's comfortable. It's got like this hard cushion on it. I don't think I'm gonna change it, although I'm used to having a Brooks saddle, a Brooks B17. Maybe in the future I'll change it, but you can't replace just the seat itself. It's connected to the seat tube, which, ugh, but fine. In order to adjust the seat height, you remove this round rubber piece. It's got this little unique inner shape to it, so you have to pay attention of how you put it back in. Otherwise, when you put it back in, it's not going to sit flush, which is a little annoying, but all right. Now, hello, what's this on the inside? I don't know, VanMoof, what's going on here? Why is the inside of the tube not painted? Now, removing this, they provide a T30 Torx wrench. It's got a little hole on the inside for security reasons, which is annoying because the bike tool that I have, it has a torque wrench, but it doesn't have that security hole on the inside. So, now, trying to adjust the seat for me the first time was incredibly difficult. Like you can see me here, like really struggling to lift this thing off. I was trying to be somewhat careful, and as I was doing it, there's a screw that came off, which all right. And some people were also complaining that when they were taking out the seat tube, there was some metal piece that basically scratched up the whole seat tube, which is why I was trying to be careful. I'm 5'10", so this is how high the seat can go at its maximum height. VanMoof says that it should be roughly waist level, although I think that's a little bit high. I roughly have it about an inch higher than the top tube. The bottom of the seat has a couple of screws that you can use to adjust to make the seat go forward or backwards. There are no rails, so can't put a bag down there. Now this is a big bike. I have an inseam of about 32 inches, so when I get on the bike and I'm standing directly over the top tube, it is touching. Getting on and off of the bike, it's not that bad if you throw your leg towards the back. But as you can see here, when I try to awkwardly climb onto the bike with my leg towards the front, the bike is so tall, it's really awkward for me to do that. Now, I typically have to do that because my son is riding right behind me. And if I throw my legs in the back, I'm basically going to kick his face. On the back of the bike, you have a unique feature to VanMoof, which is the kick lock. Essentially, you push a little button or you kick it, and there is this lock that gets bolted in, and you see those little metal teeth right underneath the brake disc. Once you push that in, that's going to lock your bike, and if anybody tries to move this around, then that's when the alarm goes off, right? So there is some kind of sensor in there. You can see how, hey, I'm moving it. The bike is telling me, stop that. I don't like that. If we try to pick it up, then it's just going to get louder and louder and louder, and then the alarm is going to go off. For me, it worked really well. I think it's great if I don't have to carry a chain with me all the time. But in Southern California, people aren't going to know what this bike is. They're going to see this bike that's out in the open, not chained. They're going to try to run off with it. So fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, this bike relies pretty heavily on its companion Android or iOS app. So even when you first start it off, you need to register the bike with the app. It sets it all up. You can set up the codes. You can set up different kinds of settings. And I think the app worked pretty well on my iPhone. Going through the setup was pretty easy. The manual has this QR code that you can scan. You don't have to type in like all the serial numbers by hand. And as soon as you start it, you're able to see the location of your bike. You're able to unlock it. You can turn it on. If you're close enough to the bike, you can see the battery from up there. You know, as you see here, it's going to start unlocking, kind of gives you a countdown to start moving the wheels. It also has a proximity sensor. So as you get closer to the bike, it's going to notice that you are close. There's a little dot on the bike screen itself, all the way at the top, that basically tells you it's connected, right? It can track your rides. For me, this doesn't work. For the life of me, it just can't work. And then these settings themselves, this is where you can change the speed, the power level, the light settings, the horn itself. I instantly changed it from VanMoof to Ding Dong. Whether you want different kinds of sounds when it wakes up or when it unlocks, setting backup codes, so on and so forth. So I think the app is intuitive and convenient. The map itself will show where your bike is in relation to you. So if you see that little yellow dot, that's where I am. And obviously the bike icon is where the bike is. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. And so you're able to track your bike at any point. But keep in mind, this bike does not have GPS. I think what it's doing is that when you connect your phone to the bike, it's using your phone's location to basically keep track of the last known location, pinpoint accuracy of where it is, and it saves that. But I think if somebody were to pick up the bike and take it somewhere, and then you show up to your house and it's like, where the hell's my bike? Then you can tell VanMoof like, hey, the bike is stolen. And even if you don't have the anti-theft protection, I think they're able to activate the 3G antennas in order to try to triangulate the location of the bike itself. Don't quote me on that. I think that's how it works though. Now, as far as issues go with the bike, I did have a couple of minor scratches on the frame itself, as you can see here. They're not very deep. I tried to clean them, but they were still there. I don't necessarily have a big problem with it. If they were like really deep scratches, I probably would have mentioned something to VanMoof, but I can live with the little scuff marks that appear straight out of the box. I am having an issue with the kick lock though, because once it unlocks, the kick lock actually doesn't come out all the way. And so part of the kick lock, it's actually rubbing against the locking mechanism itself. And you can just kind of hear it right there. You can just kind of hear it rubbing. And so what's the solution? I have to put my finger in there, which sounds ridiculous, and then push it out. So not great. I'm hoping VanMoof comes back with a solution for me. The last major issue I had is that the front disc was rubbing against the brake pads, and all I had to do was just adjust it really quickly. It was not a big deal. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't going to do a review on the spec sheet. There's all sorts of things that you can go to the website and find out about it, like the theft protection and the maintenance protection and all the other features. But I did want to talk about the price itself, because immediately if you're interested in buying this, is $2,000 worth this bike? And really anybody that's worked in sales will tell you, you don't want to sell on the price. You want to sell the value. Now, make no mistake about it. This is a luxury item. And much like anybody that buys luxury is, do you really need a Mercedes S500 when a Camry will do? Do you need a Louis Vuitton bag when a Longchamp bag will do, right? Do you really need an electric VanMoof S3 top of the line bike when the bike that you might have in your garage or in your apartment will do just fine, right? And so another way to think about is, if this bike is worth $2,000 for you, comes down to, are you really going to miss the $2,000 more than you're going to miss the bike? Or you can also think about it like, if you were to take that $2,000, instead of buying a new bike today, you were to invest it in the market, you were to put it inside of an index fund over the next 30 years, for example, or 20 or 10 years, would you be okay not having that future money in your retirement, right? At least that's how I consider these large purchases for myself. You might be different, but hey, just maybe something else to consider. Okay, so there you have it. The VanMoof S3, from a perspective of somebody who's never owned an electric bike, who had high expectations that I feel like were met. I really enjoy this bike. I think it's a great bike. It's at a fantastic price point, to be honest, and I think there's going to be many years that I'm going to enjoy this bike. I hope you will as well. Thanks for watching.